Okay, so we're going to talk about how to set up workflows to automate your LearnPlatform request and review process. This took a little bit of tweaking for us to finally get this to where it works best for our district, but we feel like we're there. So to start, you need to create review groups. This is going to be who's doing reviews for your district. So we have privacy, security, network, curriculum, and you can have as many as you need. Our curriculum is broken down into each curriculum director's area. So we have some interesting mixes like math and sex ed, and science and driver's ed and arts, but those are what our curriculum directors are assigned to. In order to create your groups, you log into LearnPlatform, select members, and then groups, and then create new group. You can assign members to that group once you have named it. Our members are pulled in through one roster, and we set that up with Madra, and so it pulls in all of our staff so that they can log in and be part of LearnPlatform. Your reviewers, you want them to be set up as admin so that they have all of the accessibility they need to complete their reviews and to check out the analysis portion and see what's being used and how much and by whom. So that's step one. Step two, you need to have your review groups create and assign forms. So we had all of our groups get together and make their form that they would fill out when they were reviewing a product on LearnPlatform. And then this form needs to be assigned to their group so that when it's part of the workflow, it'll show. And on the last slide, we have our resources, which shows exactly how our workflow is set up so that you can copy that format if you choose. Okay, the third step, you've got to build your workflow, and this is the most challenging step. We learned that LearnPlatform didn't quite have as many conditionals as we needed, so we had to make a couple workarounds. This took a few Zoom calls with Madra to get all set up, but I'm going to show you what it looks like in our LearnPlatform. So in our workflow, this is under settings and then workflow. We're editing our workflow, our new product. We have our starting event. So you have to determine what your starting event is. Ours, we have a blanket request form that staff can fill out to request a new product. The first automation is to set it as pending and the privacy status is unknown. The requester gets an email. It says we've received your request for, and then it puts the product name. And then we give them a little blurb about when our review windows are, and we will get through it as soon as possible. We haven't totally stuck to the review windows, and we're thinking that in the fall, we're gonna take those off and just complete them as we come in. This was mostly so that our curriculum directors weren't drowning as we pushed this process this year. So everybody's been keeping up fairly well. So after the requester gets the email, I'm the first person that it comes to because I do the privacy review. So there's our name, the form, and reviewers. So they all match. And I only gave myself 5 days, but you can change that to however you need. And then you'll add a step, and this is where ours gets a little interesting. So our workflow goes to our initial curriculum review, and our executive director of teaching and learning will have to assign to a specific curriculum director. So he goes in and he does have to submit the form, even though it's basically just asking him, did you assign to a curriculum director? Because if he doesn't complete the form, it will stop here and wait. And so then what he does is he has to go into this management portion on the left. And in the library, he can look for whichever app we're looking at. And then I made a new column to assign conditional reviewers. And he clicks the drop down and selects who needs to do the review. He's then continuing the workflow. Once he selects whomever it needs to go to, As long as he has submitted his form, the workflow will continue and jump to whichever curriculum director it was assigned to. And so he can select more than one if necessary. We've had that come up with a couple math and science overlapping programs and apps, but for the most part, it's just one. And these guys get 14 days, and they've done really well at keeping on top of their 14 days. It doesn't stop the workflow if they're behind. It just marks it as past due. And then once it's made it through curriculum, it comes to our network review. Our network review team has their own form. They're the reviewers. You can have more than one person in your review group. So we have a couple in this one. Once it gets past them, it lands at our final security review. And again, all of those match 14 days. Once it's past final security review, it comes back to me because it's telling me that it's made it through the workflow and I need to go mark it for our library. And I'll show you in a little bit all of the different things that I mark in our library. But it comes back to me telling me the product needs to be marked, but then it also sends an automated email to the requester once I have marked it. So it tells them their product has been marked as approved or not approved, and then how to view why a status was assigned. And so they can see why it was approved or denied. And then lastly, it sends another automated email to our IT director and our IT secretary so that they can see if a product has been approved, which means they can push purchase orders forward. And so all of that is our workflow. Workflows can be stopped at any time, and I've stopped a few after me. If it doesn't pass the privacy review, it's not going to pass. So I can go in and force stop the workflow and mark the product from there. So then once you have that,
Whitney,
yes.
this is Katie. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a good question in the chat. Grant is wondering,
Excellent.
how many hours would you estimate you and your team have spent setting up LearnPlatform?
Oh, that's a great question. Do you want from start to finish or from when I came into the position?
I imagine both would probably be helpful.
Okay. Before I came into the position, this wasn't really assigned to anyone specifically. It was a very large group effort for a lot of people who don't have time in their day-to-day work to get it done. So also on the resources slide at the very end, I have a link to another slide I put together about our entire LearnPlatform journey. And on that one, the very first step is to determine your point of contact for LearnPlatform. I've been in this position for about a year now. And once somebody was dedicated to the LearnPlatform process, my job is split 50-50, but I do spend about half of every day on LearnPlatform. It moved significantly faster. And your point of contact, this stuff is going to fall mostly to them. Our curriculum team, it probably took them a half an hour to make their form, and then I do the rest. And so I've spent, gosh, I would say it took me about 2 weeks, now not solid all day, every day, but to get this all put together with Madra. So I'm hoping that there will be folks out there who can copy our workflow and save themselves a lot of time. Madra has said that they are coming out, hopefully in the near future, with more conditionals for each review workflow, but until then, there are a couple caveats you can build in. So it does take a little bit of time, but it is definitely worth it. Okay. Step 4. Now, after you have your review groups, your forms, and you've built that workflow, this step is outside of the workflow, but it is going to make your life easier for managing your library. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create tags. You have to go to settings, then to tags, and then add a tag. It's going to allow you to create terms for your district and set definitions. And then we went even farther and created badges. I'll show you what all of that looks like here in a sec. because then you're going to work across the top that you can see over here. You start with tags, make your tag groups, make your filters, make your lists. So what that looks like, I'm in settings, I'm in tags. You add a tag, and I set mine to public because I want our teachers, I want our parents, I want everybody to be able to see them. So you name your tag and you create it. So these are the ones that we use. We want to know for our help desk people, when people call and are like, I'm locked out of my program for this, we want them to know, okay, who manages the accounts? Sometimes it's the district, sometimes it's student services, sometimes it's the school. And then you can add a definition. So approved as non-primary instructional material has a definition set by teaching and learning. So you can put that in there. And then these are the badges. They're just colored icons. So green means yes, it's good. Red, no, it's not. And so just kind of giving a visual. So once you have your tags created, you have to create a tag group. And again, just like making the tags, create the tag group, and then you select the tags you want to fall under that group. So ours, this is how we created the assigned conditional reviewers. It's a tag group, and then we put all of our curriculum areas into that group. Now, curriculum and data privacy and management, all the way down, these are all visible when you go into a program in our library. They can see, okay, it was curriculum approved, awesome. Oh, it has sensitive material, that's why it didn't pass. All of these can make it not pass. And then, okay, it didn't pass data privacy, why? Oh, there was no DPA. Or they collect and distribute PII. So we can mark all of that so that they don't have any unanswered questions when they view our library. You can set filters. This isn't a requirement. I set it so that I could control where they were all visible in. I wanted them to be visible everywhere. But then lists. This is going to help clean up your product library because it's going to make the list. Reason for assigned status. This is where you want your teachers to go. It's a checklist, tells them exactly why a product was marked the way it was. Primary, it gives them the definition so that they know what our district means when they say this is a primary material or a non-primary instructional material. And then management, this is who they can contact for help when they get locked out of something or they need training or anything like that. And the very last step is to edit your columns. So your columns are what are going to show in your management portion. And this is going to help you when it's time to mark those apps at the end of your workflow. So very similar to tags, you got to go to settings and then go to columns. You're going to adjust your column and then add your tag groups for what the column is going to be. And what that looks like is, again, we're in settings, and then we're going to go to columns. And these are my columns I have in use. A lot of these are the LearnPlatform default ones. And you can add or hide and reorder. So I use status, privacy status, primary, non-primary, our conditional reviewers, our notes, reason for assignment, assigned status, management, and when that DPA expires. And then what this is going to look like is when I go in, or when our staff go in, sorry, they can see all of these things. And I'll show you this in LearnPlatform as well, but they don't have to hunt for it. They don't have to call anybody. They don't have to email. It's all right there, right for them to see. So I'll show you a couple of views. So from management, when I get that notification from our workflow that it's time for me to mark a product for our library, I come in here, I set the status, the privacy status, whether it's a primary or non-primary. This I skip because remember, this one is part of the workflow for curriculum directors. If reviewers left any notes, I'll include them in there. And then the reason for the assigned status, it gives me this little check. I just scroll down and check everything that I need. And then same thing for management. It's going to give me this little drop down, check whomever manages it, and if there's training provided. And then lastly, when my DPA expires. This helps because I also have a couple workflows for data privacy agreements. One is giving me a warning that it expires in 60 days. And two is telling me, hey, it expired today, so that I can go into SDPC and re-add the new one. But then for our teachers, they see this. Unfortunately, they can't see the nice little table in management yet. I'm hoping that that'll be a LearnPlatform add-on later. But if they go in to a program, they click details, and then they can see, okay, curriculum says yes, security says yes, we have a state contract, so we're good. It's managed by the individual teacher or school, and primary or non-primary. The badges that I talked about briefly show up right here. So we see all this green, we say, awesome, good to go. And so with that, on this very last page, and this should be in the documents that we all have access to, the first link is a link to every single form that our teams have created so that you can get ideas, you can use them, whatever works to help you guys get your system streamlined, all the questions that each group answers, and organized in the order of our workflow. And then the second one is our workflow in depth. It's that screen I showed you on LearnPlatform, and so it just kind of shows everything that's marked, what it's marked, how that automation is set. And then the last link links to that very start to basically, if you haven't started LearnPlatform, this is a great way to kick off. Tells you step by step what I've found to work best for our district and how to get this program off the ground and get our teachers and staff using it. And so hopefully we're just trying to make it easier for everyone else, because I felt like I was a little bit baptized by fire, but we feel really good about it, and we feel like we've got buy-in, and it feels really good right now. Let's see, I haven't looked at the chat, so any questions you've seen out there, Katie or Nicole?
Yeah, so, well, and if I can just take a second and this is less of a answering a question and more of just kind of like stating like a summary, I guess, of what I've heard in the chat. Is that okay, Whitney?
Yes, please.
So some folks are feeling like, a lot of folks are like, this is so cool. And then some folks are like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Do you have anything you want to say to the overwhelmed folks? I appreciate what you just said about the journey element of this. Anything you'd like to speak to in terms of those who are feeling overwhelmed?
I was totally overwhelmed. If you haven't shed a few tears about LearnPlatform, I don't think that you've used LearnPlatform. But I can say John and Nicole have been so wonderful in helping me, and Madra is fantastic. But also, I'm happy to field any calls and help. If you want me to hop on Zoom with you and help walk you through stuff, I'm more than happy to do that as well. I don't want, if we can eliminate stress, I would love to help eliminate stress.
I love that. Thanks, Whitney. That's really amazing. Are you okay if I take a couple more minutes and kind of like tie some
Oh,
thoughts together?
absolutely.
Okay, great. So I want to kind of level set with everyone. So what Whitney just showed us is an amazing workflow for approving the use of EdTech products. I'll say that what Whitney showed us is amazing and best practice, but I want to clarify that there's no requirement to use LearnPlatform or another product like it. It's just a helpful way to manage what a lot of districts and charter schools are struggling to do without some kind of solution. I also want to clarify that LearnPlatform is a paid product, but USBE, the Utah State Board of Education, has a contract with LearnPlatform, and we provide it for free to any districts and charter schools who are participating in the Digital Teaching and Learning Grant Program, which is most of you. And if you aren't participating in that program, it's possible that we could still get you an account for free. So feel free to reach out. There's also been a lot of talk about Madra. Madra is an individual. She doesn't work for USBE, but she works for LearnPlatform. She's their customer success manager. And she's been a great partner because Utah has this statewide contract. LearnPlatform has done a really good job partnering and providing support for us as a state. So she is a powerful ally, and she understands Utah's privacy requirements surrounding educational technology and the requirement to maintain a metadata dictionary. So she's just great in that way. And yeah, a couple of people are putting her contact information in the chat. John and Nicole are also on my team, are also happy to connect you with her. I love a few people, Whitney, just like you, offered to give support. Ross from Jordan District is also like a super amazing LearnPlatform guru, and he offered in the chat to give some support. So I think there's a big community of people who are happy to help. But I do just want to also reiterate that what Whitney just showed you is not like a legal requirement or anything. It's something that it's a really great solution that Tooele District has found to meet a need that they identified. But it's not like an obligation for you as a data manager, for example, to use LearnPlatform. Just wanted to clear that up. All right, team, is there anyone else who wants to speak to any of the questions that we saw in the chat?
There was an additional question that I thought was really good from Corey Little. He asked if there's a place to include justification and FERPA exception, or if they use something else for their compliance review.
So there is in LearnPlatform, you have to add like different definitions. We do not use LearnPlatform for our metadata dictionary. It kind of appears over here. There are some districts who do it and do it really well. We use SDPC. I like having the actual DPA and all of that stuff. I personally, it was strictly a personal choice. I feel like LearnPlatform for our district works better for our teachers to get the information they need, but I like the layout of SDPC with how the justification, the purpose, and all of that is laid out in there for parents better. So strictly personal preference.
That's great. So in summary, Tooele District uses the Student Data Privacy Consortium SDPC to meet their metadata dictionary requirement, but they use LearnPlatform like internally. I will say, Corey, to answer your question, Madra from LearnPlatform, again, we've spent lots of time explaining to her Utah's metadata dictionary requirement. So she worked with the product people and developed a way to enter, the FERPA exception, the justification, all of those things that are required to meet that metadata dictionary requirement. So there are some people who are using it in that way, as Whitney mentioned, but it's again, it's a choice. Team, do you see any other questions or comments that you'd like to point out? And Whitney, you're just amazing. Thanks for this, by the way.
Thanks, Katie.
Anything else that people want to point out or ask? Christian asks, how long do we expect LearnPlatform to be provided? That's a great question. My understanding is that the funding is ongoing for at least a year, but maybe more. But I do remember hearing, don't quote me on this because I I'm just remembering it from an email, but I think I heard from a USBE staff member that LearnPlatform will not be the only contracted provider of an ed tech management system in the coming years. They're going to open it up for contracts with other vendors as well. So LearnPlatform will almost certainly be one of them, but they won't be the only one anymore, is my understanding. But there's been no conversation about like the funding leaving or anything. It's kind of wrapped into the digital teaching and learning grant program funding structure. To answer your question. And Robert says, thanks, Whitney, for sharing. I second that. Amazing. Well, I encourage you guys, I really appreciate Whitney and Ross both volunteering to help people who are interested in moving forward. As we've mentioned, Madra is a great resource too. John and Nicole are always happy to help. And Jeremy too. Now we have his expertise from using Jeremy's school that he came from, Franklin Discovery Academy. They used LearnPlatform as their metadata dictionary very effectively, and it was really great looking. So you've got some resources to reach out to. Anything else you want to add, Whitney, before we take a break?
No, I think that is a lot of information. So
It is
hopefully a good starting point.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and all the good work you've done in Tooele.